and I'm still buying it, because it's an industrial metal as well as a precious metal. All the gold is still left in the world, but silver is disappearing. Is that an adequate summary?
I completely agree with that.
Are the world's most powerful institutions secretly playing a different game? While mainstream investors chase the latest headlines, certain countries are quietly changing course. According to Robert Kiyosaki, these aren't random events. They are urgent warning signs of a massive financial shift. In this video, we uncover what is happening behind the scenes, why big players are moving their money now, and how you can protect your wealth. If Kiyosaki is right, the biggest opportunity is completely flying under the radar.
There's a law called Gresham's Law. And Gresham's Law says bad money drives out good money. So this is bad money here. It's called the US dollar. I call it toilet paper today. And this is good money here. This is silver, and this is gold. So what happened in 64 and 71, they took the gold out of this paper, toilet paper right here. And in 64, they took it out of our silver coins. So Gresham's Law is in action today. America has been kind of a bully because we had the reserve currency of the world.
I'd like to first throw out that so many things are happening all around us. And while they're significant, these individual events in and of themselves have less significance than when you put them all together. And the things that are happening inside, the blunders, if you will, that are happening inside the United States only exacerbate the consequences that are happening and the realities that are happening outside the border. In other words, the U.S. blunders, I believe, are inspiring the rest of the world, the international community, to unite in opposition to it and in joint establishment of mutually beneficial platforms of politics and economy and trade and currency, and finance and culture and education and international security and all of these things that, as you mentioned, the bullying and the sanctions and the hegemony and the hypocrisy of the West, I believe, is coming to an end.
I'm going to summarize what Andy said. America has pissed off the rest of the world.
Yeah.
We're now a credit-based economy. In other words, we print fake money and we spread it throughout the world. So what are the central banks doing with gold right now, David? They're buying, aren't they?
They're big consumers of gold right now because they recognize that their fiat currencies are being undermined by the very central banks that they're running. And the reason they're doing that is because there's a massive amount of debt that's been strapped on over the course of the last 15 to 20 years because of these easy money policies. U.S. debt today has grown to over $50 trillion. Debt service, U.S. government debt service is now over $1 trillion per year, 1 out of every $7 of tax revenue. And that's double.
Wait. That means they cannot pay for our debt with our taxes.
No way. There's no fiscally responsible way for them to repay the debt. So the only thing they can do is inflate it away. Just keep printing U.S. dollars and debase the value of that debt. And that's just a fundamental economics. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just the reality, the economic reality they face. They put on so much debt on their balance sheets. There's no way for them to repay it. They have to make the debt shrink as a percentage of the overall economy. And the way to do that is inflate it away, inflate the economy, flood it with dollars. And so this tightening that they've shown in interest rates over the last 18 months isn't doing anything because inflation rates are well above where the interest rates are. So that means real interest rates are actually negative. That's why central banks are buying gold. Gold yields nothing as a financial instrument, 0% yield. But treasuries are yielding negative on a real basis. When you take inflation away from the interest rates that are getting paid on treasuries, you're actually losing purchasing power every day. The value of your dollar is going down. As I said earlier on, the U.S. dollar has lost over 90% of its purchasing power since it abandoned the gold standard in the early 1970s. Every paper, every fiat currency ever created has ultimately failed. And that will happen with the U.S. dollar and every other currency in the world today.
Say that again. Every what?
Every fiat currency that's ever been created, and those are all created by man, that's the definition of fiat currency, ultimately has failed since the beginning of time. And that will ultimately happen to the current paper currency that we have in the world, whether it's the euro, the yen, the US dollar. These will all fail. And time and again, as we saw in Germany 100 years ago, these paper currencies fail. As we've seen in Zimbabwe of late, as we've seen in Venezuela, it's just one after another. It's like a domino effect.
So one more time, tell us what's going on with central banks. Have they finally found religion in
Well,
getting out of paper and going to gold?
Yeah, central banks are sucking and blowing. They're debasing their fiat currencies, but at the same time, as quickly as possible, they're buying hard assets to diversify their central bank reserves because they not only don't trust their own fiat currencies, they don't trust anybody else's fiat currencies they have in their central bank reserves. That's why China is not only the biggest producer of gold in the world as a country, but also the biggest importer of gold. So they consume everything they produce, and then they import more gold than any other country in the world.
There's no more powerful time to be in gold and silver. Would you agree with me, David?
100%. I mean, look at gold's performance over the last 50 years since the US dollar was decoupled from the gold standard. The purchasing power of the US dollar has gone down more than 90%. So it's worth 10 cents to the dollar that you had back in the early 1970s, whereas the gold price has gone from $35 to $2,000 over the same period. So where were you better placed with your savings, your capital, your hard-earned savings over the last 50 years than gold?
Well, that means if you're saving dollars, you're losing money.
Absolutely. You're losing purchasing power every day with the inflation that we've experienced. There's been a massive printing of currency since the US dollar was decoupled from the gold standard in the 1970s. That's why you've seen this massive inflation and this decline in the purchasing power of your dollar.
And I'm still buying it because it's an industrial metal as well as a precious metal. All the gold is still left in the world, but silver is disappearing. Is that an adequate summary?
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. So how come the price isn't going up then? Why does it stay flat?
So I believe that what I was saying earlier is the explanation for that, and that could go on for a little while longer. In other words, right, the demand is being met from these secondary supplies. And so as long as that can go on, and I think that we may have a year, maybe a couple of years left of that at most, that's going to probably keep the silver price relatively level. Now, that doesn't mean, and we've seen it before, as much as I do, Robert, we've seen it before when there's this FOMO or fear of missing out, people will pile into silver, following gold usually, and it just absolutely explodes and goes crazy. Now, we've seen it a few times in the past. Silver does tend to kind of move sideways. And then when this huge fear of missing out comes in and they see gold, let's say 2,500, silver at $35 is going to look like one heck of a bargain next to gold at 2,500. So that just drives so much investment demand, and the silver price will spike.
Yeah, when the panic hits, you're going to wish you had bought more of it. But
Exactly.
I've been buying it for so many years. Like I said, it was like $1 something. And I still have it. I
Sure.
still have it. How much silver is, the solar is the ESG, like, anyway, the green new scam, they call it.
Right.
What is your forecast for solar as far as the consumption of silver?
Well, it's become huge. It's unbelievable. In the last few years, it's gone from about 100 million ounces. So that's about, say, 10% of all the silver made available every year between mining and recycling. About 10% has gone to solar. Last year, it was already at 19%. So it's more than doubled just in the last few years.
Right.
It has absolutely doubled.
I get tongue-tied. The reason I say that is I talk to poor people, people who don't invest, and they're in the stock market, which to me is gambling. But anyway, everybody can afford it, but they'd rather save fake money, the US dollar or the Canadian loonie or the peso or the euro. So Peter, what would